All right. Hey, Mohsin. We're here today to talk about line stoppages. My name's Chris. I'm a content dude here at L2L. Mohsin, I'm going to give you a brief second to introduce yourself to anybody who's watching. Who are you and why do you know about line stoppages?
So you're a marketing dude. I'm a manufacturing dude. Mohsin, Mohsin Saeed. I've been with L12 for 4 years. Over those 4 years, I've probably been close to 100 plants
Yeah.
all across the world. So seen a lot of plants since then. But even before L2L, I worked at HP for about 12 years. A lot of different manufacturing roles, some silicone manufacturing, print cartridge manufacturing, 3D printer manufacturing, chemical manufacturing. So a lot of manufacturing there. So a lot of issues there. And then I started my own RV company where we made travel trailers or caravans for the Europeans from the ground up.
Cool.
So
I
a
didn't know
lot of
that.
manufacturing issues that I've experienced over my life. So
Yeah.
happy to share some of them with you today.
Nice. Yeah, that's why I'm here to pick your brain. What is a line stoppage? For anyone watching or for my own edification, how would you define a line stoppage in general terms?
In the most basic of terms, so you've got your whole facility. Somewhere in that facility, production has stopped.
Yeah.
There's a ton of reasons. The most basic one is whatever machine you're using to make that area has broken. That's
Yeah.
one that's most oftenly talked about. But from there, there's so many more. There's quality
Yeah.
issues. I have a bad incoming product. My machine's not making coming out. It's not looking good quality. So
Yeah.
quality issues, training issues, safety issues, material shortage issues. There's a million different things that could stop my line. But yeah, the biggest, most common one that people talk about is just machine breakdowns, but we can't
Yeah.
forget the rest of them.
Cool. Why are they bad? Like, why do we care so much as manufacturers about line stoppages?
Money. Bottom
Money.
end of the day, it's dollars, right?
Yeah.
I have a building that's on, right? There's a
Yeah.
million people in it, probably not a million, but somewhere between 50 to a couple thousand people in my building working. There's lights, there's power, there's internet, there's
Yeah.
land costs, there's cost of not getting stuff out the door. All of these different costs are adding up when my line is stopped. Different lines is different effect, right? If it's not a bottleneck, I'll probably be able to catch up and it'll be fine. But if this is stopping my whole factory, I've got everybody sitting,
Yeah.
waiting, and parts not coming out every second, every minute.
Yeah. We talk a lot about downtime. I remember one of our customers, it was like 50 grand per minute of downtime, or, the figures behind these things are absolutely astronomical, aren't they?
Yeah.
Is there one, like, is there, you mentioned complete stoppage versus bottlenecks. So is it reasonable to assume that there is like a sliding scale of severity in in a line stoppage? Are there ones that are, a level one versus like a level five or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. So, for example, while I was over at HP, we had what was called our furnace, and it was a 12-hour process. So, if that 12-hour process stopped, now we're falling behind. If there's product in there during that 12-hour process,
Yeah.
think about 500 silicone wafers in there. They're all coming out. They're all getting reworked. Now, all of that's got to happen. But during that whole 12-hour downtime, we can't make anything. And then when we
Yeah.
start, we're still going to be 12 hours of catch up time. So now everybody before them is just sitting on product. Everybody after them is now done with all of their work and it's been shipped out. And they have nothing to do till these guys get turned on, product comes out, and then it goes out. So now you're just sitting on time for a
And you're
long
paying salaries at the same time,
well,
right?
paying everything. Yeah. Salary, the building is still being paid for, lights,
Lights.
internet, all that's still paid for.
Man. Okay. Causes of line stoppages are very diverse and range from this to this. Is is there like a usual suspect for like stoppage?
So I think it's a combo, right? Like if I've been in a plant, like so when I had my RV company, we had instances where the line would stop because of a certain area where swipe guide would have been great, to be honest,
Yeah.
because people would come in and they would make a cut wrong on one of my
Yeah.
fiberglass side pieces. And now I can't continue making that unit. I have to go make a new sidewall, bring it back in. So if I heard it was something happened there, I was like, all right, I know we're going to be down for 4 hours waiting for a new
Yeah.
part to continue this. Versus other times, there's so many other things. An
Yeah.
operator didn't show up. I don't have somebody else trained to come and work in that area. And I have to find somebody, call somebody in overtime, plug somebody else in that might have an idea. And now I might not be completely stopped, but I'm running at 25% capacity, which is not as bad, but still a huge line stoppage type of issue that I'm fighting through. So there's a whole variance on what it is. Some places you'll know, yeah, that's something. Some places you're like, it's a wild card.
That's extra scary, right, for a manufacturer. Not to use, 5-year-old words, but, that's very scary because it seems like, it truly is a Murphy's Law situation, right? It is these unpredictable elements of a very complex human-driven system that, anything can go wrong. I imagine then that it's probably mostly about your response to stoppage and things that you can do proactively, right? And to me, that's a great segue into a CRRM or something like L2L that's all about proactivity and data and visibility, right? Like it seems like that's really the only practical way to tackle something that's so nuanced.
100%. So that's what, whenever I talk to customers, I always say, I wish I had L2L both at HP and my company.
Yeah.
Not as a sales, but I truly wish I had it. For example, at HP, we ran 24/7. Some of the maintenance techs had more experience than others on certain tools. So the machine could be all down all night and a person was working on it all night trying to fix it. And then the next shift, somebody's like, yeah, I've done that before. And they come in and they just 30 minutes, machine's back up and we're back to production. Where if that data was easily accessible, where I could come back and see, okay, last time so-and-so did it, and this is what they did, and then just put that right into play, we could save hours and hours of downtime just by having access to old data, having some of the L2L assist where it's like, hey, when this goes down for this reason, try these 3 things, right? Yeah. Having that ability and then also the response time, like you said, from L2L creating that dispatch, just somebody knows instantly there's a problem and we know how long it's taking. All of that would have made my life so much easier.
Who is affected by line stoppages? Is it everybody?
Top down, everybody, right? Think about, like, I'm working on the graveyard shift Saturday night at 3 a.m., right? The last thing I want to do is just sit down, because the minute I sit down, I'm falling asleep, right? I want to keep working. So the operator's just as affected. They all want to do a good job. They want to get product out. They want to do things. And if they can't, now they're also frustrated. And then it just goes up. Now the manager's frustrated because his numbers aren't going to look good. His super, or his above it, director of ops, and it all just goes up. It matters to everybody. The controller matters. I'm not making money. Production planner, I got to now move orders back and tell a customer we're not going to get these parts out on time. It affects everybody from bottom to top.
That's wild, because it's not only cascading from a systems point of view, a product, a quality point of view, but a people management point of view as well. I can relate to that. I used to work on a farm, doing a corn research. So I would just be out in a cornfield 9 hours a day, every day. And for the first, week of working there, when I was 14, at the front line doing this manual work, I would get really excited when it would rain and we'd have to shut down for an hour or something like that. And it was like, oh great, I get a break. That's not a break. You don't want downtime in any of these kind of frontline applications because it's just going to come back and bite you. Which is interesting.
Get that same amount of work done. I remember the same thing when roughly the same age. One of our neighbors had cut down probably about an acre worth of trees.
Yep.
And they're like, called a bunch of the neighborhood kids. We'll give you X amount of dollars an hour, and you just shove the branches into the chipper.
Yep.
And one of the kids found a way to jam the chipper. And they would jam it on purpose so we would all get a break. And I'm thinking, like, that's great. I got a break, but I still have to finish this. Now I'm going to have to come tomorrow because we got this hour break and we didn't get I'm still going to, it's a break, but it's also not a break because now you're still going to have to do the same work. You're still going to have to do it. You're going to be behind. There's going to be pressure from above. So, exactly.
Yeah. Cool. My next question we already kind of touched on, but maybe you could elaborate a little bit more. Like, as a manufacturing professional, what would you lay out as the the best fix for line stoppages? What would you recommend to a manufacturer as a way to reduce line stoppages and mitigate their effects when they do inevitably occur? Because they're gonna happen, right?
Yeah. So two parts. The first part is how do we, reduce them? And that's going to be coming from data. Like until you have your data, you're not going to be able to solve your problems. So capturing what happened, when it happened, where it happened, what product was running. And I'll give you a quick story about the product in a second as well. And what we did to fix it. So we have all of that. And then if we could parse that down, whenever this happens, this is how long it takes, and this is the root cause, and it's starting to happen every 2 weeks. Let's just add that one activity to my 2-week PM. Yeah. And now I don't have to have unplanned during my planned time. I can go fix that. Yeah. So that's how we can kind of work to solve it. The other one is trying to capture notifying the right people when it happens, right? There are certain things you're better at. There's certain things I'm better at. There's certain things other people are better at. Go to the right source when there's a problem at the right time so they can come do it. And then again, try to capture all that information for the root cause analysis. I had way back in the day, there was a buddy of mine had a bagel shop, and he used to mix his bagels. And there was one mixer that just always broke. It always broke, and he couldn't figure it out. And so he was like, "Hey, can you guys come help me out?" So we were over there, we're watching, it's running. And then finally it broke, and we're like, what are you running in here? And he was running raisin bagels, and that motor was starting to jam whenever there was raisins in there. So he stopped running the raisin bagels on that one mixer, and he didn't have downtime again.
You never had it.
So like there's a lot of variables, right? Like
yeah.
If you didn't capture the product and start writing that down, then you wouldn't know how to solve it in the future. You just like, I don't know why I'm just swapping out motors 3 weeks. So
yeah, absolutely. And that's the power of data at scale, right? Because the modern manufacturer isn't working on a single blender. He or she is working on 100 machines running 24 hours a day, potentially on 2 different continents,
Yes.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Then, not just data. I like to call it actionable data, right?
Oh, yeah.
People have data. There's no, like a lot of our customers have data for days.
I got data.
Yeah, we all, exactly right. But make it actionable, right? How could I get to my root cause within a minute so I could actually work on solving it rather than spend days on getting the root cause, and now I got another problem to solve.
Absolutely. I'd have to say that bagels are probably my favorite branch of manufacturing.
I went to some plant in Kentucky, and they had cupcakes. Like
Ooh.
they made the powder for the cupcakes.
Okay.
But they also had to sample them. So out of every batch, one box would be taken up to the kitchen. They had 2 ladies,
job.
and they just made them, and they would put them in the break room. So
what's the most ridiculous case or reason for a line stoppage that you have seen in your manufacturer tenure?
Oh man,
I'm putting you on the spot here.
The most ridiculous one I've seen was when
Interpret that however you want it.
There's a lot. There's one where a customer is making these things out of metal. They warm up the metal, and then they do a press and cut. Mm-hmm. And it's a big machine, a lot of oil, a lot of sparks. And sometimes that spark hits the oil and a fire starts.
Oh my God. Wow.
So that can one of them. But the one that I think is the most ridiculous one is when I was working, I had a colleague that was super invested in the stock market. Like that was their life. The stock market went up, productivity at work went up. Stock market went down, productivity at work went down. And so there was one day where some stock that they had put a lot of money in was flopping, and work was not getting done. And we would show up, and like I came down to the line. I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" "I'm working. Leave me alone." I'm like, "All right, come back." And then finally somebody else came and told me like the stocks are down. So then I had to have a sit down with that operator and be like, "Look, I understand financial, all that, but like you're here to work. So you got to leave the stock part out of it. And when you come to work, just work." So like you can't even plan this, right? Like the operator was there. They were trained. The machine was up. The product was good. There was not a quality issue. It was just a mental state of mind, which is now causing my line to stop.
Wow. You know, I have to bring this back to the thing that I always harp on is that this is a human-centered business, and you can plan and get data until you're blue in the face, but you also need to go know what's going on in people's heads
Yeah,
and in their
100%.
lives,
Yeah,
because that's the X factor, you know. That's the truth behind it all, is that it's still a people-centered industry, right? Like
100%.
that's
Which is,
your
yeah, the connected
uh,
frontline worker. We got to make sure our
yeah.
frontline people are happy doing their job, and we'll get out great parts.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Thank you so much, Mohsin. Really appreciate this. Thanks
My
for sharing
pleasure.
your insights, some fun stories, and a lot of expert knowledge.
My pleasure.
And
Anytime. Thanks, Chris.
cool. Yeah, of course.